It ain't the left side or the right side, then it must be the FinSide. It ain't the left side or the right side.
Thank you, Solo D. Welcome to another episode of On the FinSide here with Kat and Paul. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Spreaker, iTunes, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. You can find us on Twitter as well. On the FinSide, you can find me at Brian Cat NFL and Paul at Fanatic with a PH _pick, Fanatic _pick. We are previewing the Miami Dolphins Buffalo Bills matchup taking place at noon Central, 1 Eastern at New Era Stadium in Buffalo. Highs are expected to be in the lower 60s. Looks like it's going to be a pretty good day. Not that normal snowy Buffalo weather that sometimes we always seem to play in December. As far as the injuries are concerned, the Bills should be returning to full strength after their bye. They're going to get a lot of key players back. Running back Devin Singletary was averaging 12.7 yards a carry before he went down with an injury. He'll split some time with Frank Gore. Robert Foster, the wide receiver, that was a deep threat for them last year, comes back. Tyler Croft, who they signed in the offseason to a pretty decent-sized contract, will return too. And Ty Nsekhe will probably start at right tackle as well. On the Dolphins side, 3 players should be out. Center Dan Kilgore is going to force the Dolphins probably to take Evan Boehm and move him to center. And Shaq Calhoun is expected to get the start at right guard. Avery Moss is going to be out of this contest as well as Rashad Jones, who basically is on again, off again. Who knows with them. And then Xavier Howard and Jakeem Grant are questionable. Hopefully they can play in this game to help the matchups a little bit. But, Paul, the big news this week is Ryan Fitzpatrick. We've said for weeks on the show that we want Josh Rosen starting. We want him to be thrown to the wolves and see what the kid is made of to see if he can rally back and really give the Dolphins kind of a plan B in the 2020 NFL draft. But they did go with Fitzpatrick. Your thoughts on this?
I'm not happy about it. I'm not happy at all. Did Fitzpatrick come in and rally the troops last week? Yes. But we know what Ryan Fitzpatrick is. We know what he's going to be. We know what he always will be. And we don't know what Rosen's going to develop into. Am I a little leery that he's going to turn into the guy? Of course. But he's also a young second-year player who was a young first-year player last year. And we need to see how he develops. And the only way to do that is in game action. And let's face it, Miami's not going to be a world beater at all this season. I think that's evident to everyone at this point. I think if you think they're going to be a world beater this season, good for you. But really, we need to see how Rosen develops. We need to see if he can start showing some flashes where maybe he could be the starter next year. If he can start showing enough flashes to be the backup next year. We need to see what the hell this guy is at this point. It's extended preseason. Let's see what the hell the guy is, see how he can bounce back and see what we can get out of him.
Well, I don't like it for a lot of reasons that are current and some in the past. I mean, again, I hate to beat this drum again. After you traded for Josh Rosen, it's why I did not agree with the Laramie Tunsil trade. I mean, now you see the Texans that it's looking pretty likely that they're going to be a playoff team the next 2 years. And Tunsil's playing fantastic with the Texans, and it's not a surprise to me. So you do that, and also you lose Juwan James. And, hey, if you didn't want Juwan James back because of his injury history, congratulations, you won. But in terms of ability, no, the Dolphins could have had 2 bookend tackles. And it pisses me off now because I think a big reason that Rosen isn't in is like, well, there's so little on offense, and the offensive line is so bad. If you put him in there, you're just going to damage him. And I'm like, well, what was the whole effing point of this to begin with? It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. So that's one part. On the positive side, if there is one, when Ryan Fitzpatrick did come in last week, he did play well, and the Dolphins have some very young players they need to know about, just like Rosen, at the skill positions. Mark Walton is 22. Preston Williams is 22. Mike Gesicki, who's coming off his best game, largely when Ryan Fitzpatrick got into the game, when he caught that long pass, is 23. So that's the other side of it. But a lot bothers me about this too.
Yeah, I mean, we need to see what the hell this kid has. Let's face it. I mean, while I want to see what some of the other skill positions, I'm with you on the bookend tackles thing. There were 2 young bookend tackles, but by the same token, I'm going to bring up a thing that you pointed out. You know, Laramie Tunsil came out after the fact and said, "I would have accepted that trade too." So you know, it's a tough call, but at the same time, you want to talk about the skill position players, and I know you're probably going to bring this up. Kenyon Drake, one of the best weapons that Miami has on offense, still been underutilized this season, and now it's floating out there that Miami's dangling him in trade talks. Jesus Christ, we're trading away our young core now.
Well, I would argue the Dolphins don't have a young core, and they've already traded that away, and that's why frustrates me, because I feel like they've gone too far at certain points. I don't think Minka was too far, because Minka basically quit on the team. But
yeah,
and then I look at Drake too, and I'm like, well, why not at this point? I mean, look, if you're going to have him split time with Mark Walton, and you're not going to re-sign him after the year anyway, and you're not going to get a compensatory pick in 2021, because the Dolphins are obviously going to go free agent crazy in 2020, you might as well. And it's a shame, because we love Drake. We talk week in and week out about how he's underutilized, but I don't see the Dolphins going from having him split time and underutilize him for the last 2 years to saying, you know what, we really need to overpay to re-sign him after the season.
I agree, and if Miami is going to make that trade, what I would like to see Miami do is basically, I would start calling the Jacksonville Jaguars. I would start calling the Tennessee Titans. I would start calling anybody that's in the mix for a wild card pick, and try to put Drake on a team where he's going to be utilized and be in a position to help hurt the Texans' stock. Because anything you can do to help potentially knock the Texans out of the playoff race is a big win, and it makes Drake one of the most valuable players not in a Dolphins uniform. So if you can give a weapon to Gardner Minshew, if you can give Tennessee starter Ryan Tannehill a weapon to maybe come in and make a run at the AFC South, if you can give a weapon to a team that's arguing for a playoff spot, that if, say, the Jaguars or Titans can pass the Texans, which I don't see happening, but stranger things have happened, and take that wild card away from the Texans, it moves that draft pick way up the board as far as the Dolphins Texans first rounder goes. So at this point, if you're going to trade Drake, you're not going to get that much for him at this point. Trade him somewhere that you can make your first round pick more valuable.
Yeah, as far as the AFC South, you've got Leonard Fournette, you've got Marlon Mack, and you got Derrick Henry in that division. So probably not going to happen in the AFC South. But you know, I don't see the Dolphins, if they trade Drake, getting any higher than a 5th round pick for him. You know, maybe Chris Greer can do that swap where, you know, maybe he gets a 3rd round pick for a Drake and a 4th and a 5th or something like that, which is something, again, at this point, I'd say why not? But it's a shame. I mean, it's really a shame that the Dolphins continue, like I've said in the past, to trade dollars for nickels and nickels for pennies, and then at the end of the day wonder why they're broke. And Kenyon Drake is a prime example of that. But I do like Mark Walton, and he's a player that, if the Dolphins can fix the offensive line, I think he has some talent. I mean, he was a very good player at the University of Miami, and I think he's shown a lot. He has all this. He has a very well-rounded skill set. So on offense, you're going to have Mark Walton getting a lot of carries in this game, and he's really the prime guy to look out here for on offense until the end of the year, along with the Preston Williams and the Mike Gesicki's too. But the offensive line, one big change in this game is Daniel Kilgore is not going to start this game, and I don't think much of Kilgore. I don't think he's the reason the offensive line is terrible, but still a below average player. What I am kind of excited about, though, is Evan Boehm should start at center in this contest, and Shaq Calhoun will start at right guard. I mean, these are the players I kind of want to see as the rest of the year progresses.
I do too, and the scary thing for me in this game is, you're talking about the swap outs in the middle of the offensive line. Jordan Phillips is right in the middle of the Bills' defensive line, and he's been a force to be reckoned with this year. He's got 4 sacks in the first 5 games, and it scares me already with the starters in the middle of the offensive line with Jordan Phillips, because we've seen a lot of pressure up the gut already. And then you look at the fact that we're starting to swap backups in along the middle of that line, and Jordan Phillips might tee off in this one.
Yeah, Jordan Phillips, 4 sacks this year, 3 in the last game largely going up against Roger Saffold, who's pretty high-level guard, at least in his career. He's having a rough year this year, but you've got that, and you've also have a former number 9 overall pick and rookie Ed Oliver, who doesn't have a big sack total, but very, very good against the run, disruptive into the backfield. So, yeah, it's going to be a handful on the interior of that line. They also rotate Star Lotulelei in there, too, in run defense. On the edge, they don't have a big-time edge rusher there, but they've certainly got a good rotation there. Jerry Hughes, it seems like he's been playing there forever. Also, Shaq Lawson has gotten better and better and better here. That was actually the player that I thought Charles Harris would kind of be when he came out of Missouri. That's a joke at this point. So, yeah, I guess one thing the Dolphins have done pretty well at the outset of some games here. Actually, not last week against Washington when they allowed 4 sacks, but if they can get the running game going and running downhill, then it takes a little bit of the pressure off that offensive line. But other than that, not a very good matchup all around. But then again, it's really not a good matchup for anyone the Dolphins face right now.
Not at all. I mean, one big thing that would help is getting Xavier Howard back. Josh Allen's thrown 7 interceptions versus 5 touchdowns this season. And Xavier Howard is the Dolphins' interception machine. Bobby McCain's been trying to step into that role at times this year. But in reality, Xavier Howard's the best corner on this team, possibly in the conference, possibly in the league. And, he would be huge given the fact that Josh Allen seems to be the only one on that team that's really at times underperforming as far as the interception numbers go.
Yeah, and Allen has surprised me a little bit in that he's completing 62.6% of his passes. I mean, he was always in that 50% mark, not only as a rookie, but also at Wyoming too. So he's learning to throw a little more intermediate routes there instead of just going over the top all the time. But he's starting to get a lot more of a well-rounded skill set. I still think he's not somebody who's going to completely take over the game. I don't think he's there yet, and he may never be. But last year against the Dolphins, Josh Allen in 2 games ran for 230 yards, which makes me throw up. And they both should have been Bills wins, let's face it, because if Charles Clay catches that pass in the end, the Bills sweep the Dolphins last year, and the Dolphins go 6-10. But, yeah, it's also in addition to Josh Allen, they're going to get Devin Singletary back at running back. But the old reliable Frank Gore is going to be the guy getting the lion's share of the carries. 333 rushing yards this year from Frank Gore. I got to tell you too, Paul, if in back-to-back weeks with after facing Adrian Peterson last week, if the Dolphins' run defense allows a 100-yard rusher to 34-year-old and older running backs in back-to-back weeks, that's going to be a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah, we need Christian Wilkins to step up a little more. I mean, Davin Godchau's been stout. Christian Wilkins has been okay, but I understand that he's a rookie, but all the hype, all the talk before the year. I want to see Christian Wilkins take a little bit of his step forward in his rookie year in this game, and we need to see a little bit more from Sam McGlavian and Jerome Baker in this one. Rake McMillan's been getting the job done. Vince Beagle's been getting the job done. But those two have been pretty not evident thus far throughout games. Their only notoriety is in their absence. And given the play we saw from both of them in the preseason, I'm expecting a lot more, and we need them as far as containing Josh Allen and his legs, let alone Frank Gore and Devin Singletary.
Yeah, and It'll be interesting to see how they rotate in this defensive front. Avery Moss won't play this game, so we should see a lot more John Jenkins at that defensive end spot in the three-man front. And I also think in terms of creating a pass rush, right now, if you have any hope of that, you need to keep Vince Beagle and Taco Charlton on the field a lot more. I know you're not a huge fan of Taco Charlton. I understand why, but he also is somebody who physically is able to actually get into the backfield. And in a game like this, you could maybe even move him off the ball a little bit, have him spy Josh Allen a little bit, because he's the only defensive lineman we have that might be able to spy him. But Vince Beagle consistently is the one that when he's on the field, he looks like a more refined pass rusher. And again, a player at 26 years old, we got to know about by the end of the year.
Yeah, no, I think I already know about him. I want him on the roster next year, even if it's in a little bit more spot duty based on what Miami does in the offseason. Taco Charlton, I'm still not sure about, because while he does tend to slip through occasionally, when he's bad, he is so bad. Like, it's mind-boggling to me, because it feels like when he doesn't get through, all he's doing is adding to an offensive lineman's pancake numbers for the year. And it's one or the other. And unfortunately, too often, it's literally on his back. And we're talking about the running game. You know, he can't set an edge to save his life. He cannot set an edge. He cannot contain. And you need that from your defensive ends.
Yeah, when I looked at the game tape last week, I mean, on Adrian Peterson's longest run, you see Taco Charlton get completely wiped out of the play. And yeah, if that's going to happen, I'm willing to have that happen a couple of times a game if he's also consistently getting into the backfield. He's not, but he is once or twice a game, and he's got the physical potential too. So he's starting to play a lot more snaps than Charles Harris, no doubt as to why, but yeah. So yeah, and getting Xavier Howard back is going to make a big difference in this contest if he's able to play, because well, actually, last week, I don't think the secondary did all that bad. Terry McLaurin had 100 yards and 2 touchdowns, but other than that, Case Keenum didn't really have much success throwing the football. So you get him back, and that could have some impact, especially if Eric Rowe finally puts together 2 good games at that outside boundary cornerback spot.
Yeah, Rowe will have 2 good games this year, but unfortunately, I can't see that being in a row based on what we've seen from him thus far. Rowe's another one that is starting that I don't want back next year. I mean, his good games aren't even great games. They're good. And the ones in between are so freaking bad. I mean, and even when he puts together a couple good plays in the game, he has way too many detrimental ones for me. I'm over the Eric Rowe experiment. I'm using him as a placeholder on the defense in my head thus far. And unless he's going to be depth next year, I don't want him back.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm with you overall in Rowe. I didn't like the signing to begin with, and if you were that far gone on when a wide receiver just runs up and does a 15-yard out route, and you're just, either on your butt or just 5 yards away from the play, that's not good enough. Ken Webster gave up a touchdown last week to McLaurin, and he may have given up a second. It's kind of hard to tell whether or not that was on he or McCain. But again, physical potential with this kid, and I think we need to continue to go back to that well to see what somebody like that is made out of. So
yeah, I'll let Ken Webster make some mistakes. He is young. He's recovering from an injury. He's not some vet that's supposed to come in and be a leader on this defense. That's what Rowe was supposed to be. Rowe was supposed to be that vet that's already developed. We know what he is, and supposed to come in and be a leader on the defense, help implement the schemes. And I'm sorry, I see none of that. Webster, yeah, he's a young, developing player. He's going to have some bumps along the way. That's a little different scenario for me.
Yeah, and one other thing to keep an eye out too as we continue to go along, the Dolphins might get Cordrea Tankersley and Robert Candice on the defensive line in the mix here, and that could be interesting because now Tankersley is in a position where he's playing more of a man-to-man defense than the zone Matt Burke style that not only he was a bad fit for, but everybody was a bad fit for. And a little more of the pressure's off for him. So I'm looking forward to seeing if he can come in and unseat Eric Rowe. Robert Condice is somebody who's just had a nightmare of an NFL career as a former first-round pick. But look, we've got Taco Charlton, we've got Robert Condice. We're collecting first-round busts and seeing if a change of scenery is going to do anything different for him.
We're collecting Arizona's first round busts for one, and Taco obviously wasn't, but it's just funny to me. But no, it's hopefully a couple. I mean, I'm really looking forward to seeing what we see from Nkemdiche. He definitely is a guy that I know we both liked a little bit in the draft, and we need some help along that D front at this point. He may not be a world beater, but he might be better than what we've got in a few of those spots. So
yeah,
let's get him back.
The talent's there with Condice. I didn't like him as a top 5 or top 10 pick when he was projected there, but when he fell down to that late first round area, I thought, okay, well, I can see that being worth it. But clearly he wasn't mentally ready to be part of the NFL at that point. So, Paul, before we get into kind of the standings here and where the Dolphins sit in terms of draft picks and the top 10, what's your prediction for this game?
Man, I'm going 27 to 10, and 10 feels like a stretch this week for the Dolphins, unfortunately. I think the Bills win this one pretty handily.
Can you say 27 to 11 just so they cover the spread?
All right, 27 to 11 so they cover the spread. Actually, no. You know what? I'm going to double the disappointment this week, 27 to 10.
All
double
right.
Disappointment.
Sounds good. And I think the line's actually 16 and a half, so screw you. I'm going to go 24 to 9 Buffalo. 3 field goals, and I think this is going to be a typical type of game where Josh Allen doesn't do a whole heck of a lot, but the Dolphins control the clock. I mean, it just seems in character for this team to allow Frank Gore to come back and take his frustration out on his old team, and the Bills get to 5-1. And gosh, after this, the Bills don't have that hard of a schedule over the next several weeks. I was talking with Nick Wooten from the USA Today. We have a great segment with him previewing this matchup too. I mean, when you take a look at who they're facing over the next several weeks, over the next 6 weeks, they've got the Dolphins twice. They've got the Redskins at home. They've got the Broncos at home. And then they have some pretty tough matchups at home against Philly and at Cleveland. So, man, we could be talking about an 8-3 Bills team here, and that is not good for my psyche here as the season continues to wear on. But they deserve it. And drafting Josh Allen and Tremaine Edmonds, who, by the way, that's a big weapon for the Bills in the middle of their defense. When he stays disciplined, he uses that wingspan at 6'5", 250 to really get going. So taking a look at the standings here, Paul, and man, I'm so frustrated the Steelers won that game, because if not, the Dolphins would have the second and third picks heading into this game. Instead, the Dolphins would have the second pick, and only because the Bengals are 0-6 and the Dolphins are 0-5. If all were the same, the Dolphins would have the number 1 pick heading into week 7 here. So you got the Bengals with the number 1 pick. They play 4-2 Baltimore at noon. The Dolphins obviously play at 4-1 Buffalo. The Redskins play at home against the 5-0 49ers. Number 4, the Falcons, 1-5, play the Rams at home. They're 3-3, and the Rams seem pretty ripe for a win there. 5th, Jets play Monday Night Football against New England, who are 6-0. That's, I'm sure, is a loss. 6, the Broncos lost to the Chiefs on Thursday Night Football. 7, the Browns, 2-4. They have a bye this week. The Jaguars at 8 play at Cincinnati, who are like a excuse me, I made a mistake here. Jaguars play somebody, so we'll get back to you on that. And 9, the Steelers have a bye, and hopefully they don't climb any higher as we go along here than number 9, because I think it's really important, Paul, that the Steelers keep that top 10 pick.
Oh, I want the Steelers pick to be a top 5, and I think it still could be when all is said and done. They looked good in that win last week, but to me, they're still a pretender at this point. I don't see them being that team. With the Redskins getting feistier and feistier about Mike Tomlin, I see that starting to undermine a team that's already underwhelming to begin with. And because, we all remember when Nick Saban was leaving the Dolphins and how much that started to undermine things as the rumors started to swirl before anything was confirmed out there. And hopefully that's something that we see start to happen to the Steelers, even if Tomlin does not leave. We all know once those rumors are out there, even if the coach stands up until he's blue in the face, screaming he's going nowhere, there's the doubt, and that undermines a team in a season at times. So hopefully that helps undermine things, and hopefully the Steelers can lose a hell of a lot of games down the stretch and give Miami 2 top 5 picks.
Yeah, Steelers are on a bye this week, and then they've got Miami in the following week. But, yeah, I still don't see them winning more than 6 games, but hopefully they don't go on a little bit of a run. That defense has some good players. It's all pretty much littered with former first-round picks, and it's never been a bad defense, but it's never been a great one. And rookie linebacker Devin Bush is certainly a candidate at this point for Rookie of the Year candidate. So we'll see what happens. The Dolphins play the Bills, and before that, you guys know I don't share a lot of personal info on this show. Every Sunday, I would pick up a friend of mine, and his name was Ryan, and we would go to Cafe Afton here in St. Louis, Missouri, and we would share a pitcher of beer. We'd line up all our games, and we just talk about football, life, everything. We very, very, very unexpectedly lost him here this past week. We're actually laying him to rest here after recording the show. It's been a tough week, but I loved when he sat next to me. He was always, when the Dolphins were getting crushed, he would always remind me how many draft picks they have here in the future. So, Ryan, I hope you're looking down on us, and hopefully you're right about these Dolphins draft picks here. So that will do it for our breakdown of the Dolphins-Bills matchup here this Sunday at noon Central, 1 Eastern at New Era Stadium. You can follow Paul and I on the FinSide, on Twitter, on Facebook, on Spreaker, YouTube, iHeartRadio, Spotify. You know where to find us at this point. Thank you for everybody for leaving the comments from week to week. Paul and I are going to get better too at responding to as many of those as we can. And if it's not on the right side and it's not on the left side, it is on the fin side. Sola D, take us home.
It ain't the left side or the right side, and it must be the fin side. It ain't the left side or the right side, and it must be the fin side. Listen, Dolphins fans across the land all tuning in to see what